I got a C on the first paper that I was ever really proud of. I was in Dr. Jones' senior class in high school, his English class, and I wrote a paper on The Wasteland. It's a poem by T.S. Eliot, and it's a really complicated poem, and I thought that because I chose something really complicated, that if I could kind of make sense of it, that I would get a really good grade. And I really thought I had. I thought I had made sense of it. I spent a lot of time tracking down, obscure literary references and trying to place them in a way that made sense. And then I got a C on this paper, and I became a C student in college, but in high school I was not a C student. This was a big deal for me. I was deeply disappointed, and I was really confused, I guess, about why that happened. Why did I get a C on a paper that I had tried harder on and worked harder on than any other paper that I had ever done? And there are a host of reasons why that happened, and truthfully, it was definitely a C paper in retrospect. But I think that the one thing that I did most wrong, the most incorrect or least correct, whichever way you want to phrase it, thing that I did, it had to do with my process. Because I had something that I really wanted to say about the wasteland, but I didn't feel like I had the authority to say it. You know how you might have an opinion about something, but you're new to it, or it's complicated, or you're not sure if you have the authority, and so you try to find another way of saying it. That's what I did. I tried to find another way of saying what I wanted to say, and so I had tracked down all these very specific sources, and then I had read them all, and then I had found the one spot where they hinted at something that I might be able to use in my paper, even if it was something that was obviously being misused in my paper. Something misused, like, some people think this, and that's not correct, but I did think that, so I wanted to include it, right? That was my approach. I had a direct line to where I wanted to go, a straight path ahead, and as I walked down that direct line, that straight path, I just pulled from sources where I could to create a foundation for myself walking forward. And that is not how you're supposed to do it. That really defeats the purpose. You can't begin with a specific answer in mind without having done any research. It's the curse of the internet, right? With so many things available, with the ubiquity of sources and of opinions, that no matter what your opinion is, you can find someone who agrees with you, always. And if you're doing research and you type something into your search engine, like evidence for, whatever you're looking for, you're going to find evidence for that thing. And that's not so much research as it is just reinforcing what you already believe. And I know I've said stuff like this before, and I'll say it again, I'm going to harp on it, but you can't begin that way. You can't begin by saying, I already know all of the answers. Now I just need to go find people with enough sense to agree with me. That's not the right way to go about doing it. If I could go back in time, and talk to my past self, my high school senior self, who was sitting down to write this paper, I would say the first thing you need to do is start with a question, right? Find something you're not sure about and just start there. Don't begin wanting to say something thinking you have all the answers. Of course, trying to teach high school me humility is a waste of time. That had to come through a lot of error over the years, but that's what I would hope to be able to say. That's what I would hope to be able to communicate. There's this research process that I had to go through again and again in college, for my undergraduate and for my master's degree, and I didn't really begin to figure out the right approach to it until I was getting my PhD and I was writing my dissertation. My prospectus was rejected 4 times. Now, what that basically means is that 4 times I asked to write a dissertation, and 4 times my committee said, we don't think that you're ready to even begin writing. And truth be told, they were right. But most people don't have a single prospectus rejected. So I was way behind the curve. I was not at all where I was supposed to be. And where I finally got after about 2.5, 3 years of trying to get this prospectus through, I finally got it through. And what had changed was that I had stopped thinking that I had all of the answers or had a specific conclusion in mind, and instead I had a bunch of questions. I had found something that really caught my interest. And so instead of walking in that straight line trying to find sources that supported what I already wanted to say, I had kind of entered into this forest and I began exploring. And that's what good research is like. It's like exploring in an area with no paths, with no clear destination, just kind of walking and amble through the woods because you don't know what you'll find. And if you aren't looking for one specific thing, then you're open to a lot more. And that's the right way to do research. Yes, you have a question that you're trying to answer. Yes, you're searching for certain things, but you're open to whatever you're going to find. See, if all you're trying to do is to find specific, discrete answers to a question that you have, and you already know what those right answers are, you're going to ignore almost everything. Now, it's a pretty quick process too, right? The nature of search engines is that if you ask a question, it'll give you an answer, and you can phrase your question to get the answer that you want, so it won't take you very long. But that won't get you good research, and it won't make for a very good paper, because that's really rewarding you for being opinionated or closed-minded. And what's really rewarded, what makes good writing, is diligence and curiosity. So yes, it does take more time to explore, because you're going to go down paths that turn out to be just, these useless garden paths. That's going to happen. Yeah, absolutely. But sometimes that diligence and that curiosity are going to pay off with a paper, an idea, a source that you didn't even think that wasn't on your radar. It never occurred to you that this might be something you could write about. And yet, here it is. A major factor in my dissertation was constitutions. These things that people write that lay out sort of what their core principles are. That was not something I was looking for at all. And I had this moment of synchronicity. I was reading one night, and this word constitution was used in a way that I didn't expect it, in a source that I didn't expect it in. And then I looked to another source, and I was looking for something else, but the word constitution was used there as well. And I thought that was very strange. And that became something that was kind of a core part of my argument, is what do constitutions do? And that was something that was only there because I was curious about the topic. Now, that curiosity can, and I'm sure you've experienced this before, come to the surface and then disappear. It can be something that you think about and you have this great idea and it's, 1 a.m. and you're exhausted, then you go to bed and you wake up and it's totally gone. To avoid that and also to help you develop your ideas in a way that will make them easy to communicate in a paper, it's a good idea to find someone to talk to. Find someone to talk to, because when you find someone to talk to about your ideas, you're going to shape your words, you're going to shape those concepts for an audience. And that's what you're doing in your paper as well, but it's going to help you get feedback from them. It's going to help you practice how you're going to deliver it, and you're going to find out what you do and you don't know because you're trying to communicate it. Before you take an idea and communicate it, when it's just in your head, it probably feels pretty solid. But when you actually try to explain that idea to someone, that's a little bit more difficult, right? So find somebody to talk to about your idea. And if you think that your idea is just so terribly boring that no one would possibly be interested, maybe you're right. I know that sounds kind of cruel, but it could be that that's true, that it's not very interesting. And if that's the case, ask yourself, is it interesting to you? Now, if it's interesting to you, I guarantee you there's somebody out there who's also interested in it. And if you can't find them, by all means, talk to me. But in general, if something is inspiring to you, if something is interesting to you, you'll want to talk about it, you'll be able to talk about it, and that conversation, the give and take of a conversation about something, is what will solidify those ideas that will prepare you to write. Now, I have one final piece of advice here for what you should do when you're doing research, because it is this explorative type of process, but you should follow your hunches. Right? When you're exploring, when you're just kind of ambling through the woods, you follow your whims. You don't have a map necessarily. You don't have to go from A to B, right? You're just following your whims, and that's what you should do in your research as well. It's your job to make connections between sources that don't exist. That's the role of the writer. When you're putting these sources together, you are showing me how they can be connected. They're not necessarily connected on their own, right? Maybe they are, but they're not necessarily connected on their own. It's because you are showing me how they're connected. You are showing me, based on your ideas, how all of these things can come together. And when you go to write, that's an exploration too, because it may not be apparent to you, even after doing this research, how these ideas are going to come together in your paper. But in the process of writing, that's how you'll connect them. You'll explore these thoughts on the page and connect them that way. In a sense, it's also, speaking of finding someone to talk to, like having a conversation with your past self. Right? You have these ideas, you write them down, you continue to think, and then you refer back to them. In the same way that I wish sometimes that I could go back in time and talk to my younger self and explain why what I'm doing is a terrible idea. Or, do more of this, do less of that, whatever the case may be. In that same way, when you're writing, you actually can do that. You can talk to your past self. You can go revise what you did in the past on the page. It's an exploration, yes, but one where you can go back and find the parts where you went wrong and cut them out. It's kind of a liberatory thing. And that's where I want you to be this week. Next week, we're going to be actually doing the drafting, where you're going to draft this next section of your paper. You have your personal connection to this topic, right? Here's what connects me individually to it. Then this next section is your research section. Here's what everybody's saying about this, right? Here's all the stuff that these people are talking about, and this is all the material that I'm going to work with. That's that next section. But for now, what I want you to do is do the research, find the sources, and then treat them this way, like you're exploring, right? Treat them as an area, a forest, if you will, that you want to go exploring in. And I think that will benefit you most of all in preparing to write your paper.